Welcome again to Conscious Action for Truth, the Cat in Cat Chats. And we are excited to introduce our first sponsor of the show, David Gordon of Gordon Rocket Company. And no, I don't think there are rockets yet, but there's something almost as amazing, or maybe as amazing, which is the rocket stove.
That's right.
So, David, can you tell me how you got into this? You've invented something here, which I'm looking at, and we'll go over it. I am amazed by this and its potential. So tell me how you came up with the idea and
Sure.
got it.
It's quite a history, really. I kind of tell a joke when people ask me how I invented it, about having stared at my fireplace for 30 years. And indeed I did, but not all at the same time. When I'd come back to my folks' house, they had a larger fireplace. And I always wondered, what if the electricity went out for an extended period of time, as they are currently experiencing in Texas on a wide scale, with sub-freezing temperatures, I should say. Anyways, this design was made for that exact scenario. It was originally designed as a fireplace insert, and as I looked at the fireplace back in the day, I think about, well, hey, we could cook on the fireplace and have light and heat, but we'd go through firewood so fast that it really wasn't a realistic solution for any type of extended period of time. And now, as we understand it, that's what they seem to be experiencing in Texas.
Yeah. Well, I have a stepdaughter in Texas and her husband and 2 kids, and I wish they had one of these stoves now. So the one we're looking at here looks quite small. I'd say, how is it, 2 feet tall?
Yeah, it's about 2.5. This is the mini version.
Okay.
This is for backpacking, camping, horse camping. We also have the full size, and we tested one in a Kiva-style fireplace here in Santa Fe, and it worked just brilliantly. Warmed up a whole large room of a house. Definitely made it survivable. Not only are you getting the heat from the burning of the wood within the unit, but you're also able to cook on it on 2 levels. There's a place to put a frying pan on the top flat side, and then underneath there's an oven. Now for outdoors, we can use the grilla, as we call it, top part. It's kind of like an upside down pyramid, and you put hamburgers on that. So in outdoor conditions, you're actually using it as a barbecue. So the beauty of it is it's there for the emergency situations, but in the meantime, it's the world's best barbecue.
So I'm looking at it here, and you're saying you put the wood in it, and I'm looking, well, this is tiny. I mean, it's almost like matchsticks or something to go into it, really tiny. So how on earth can that really heat?
I know.
So tell me about, there's something different going on here, right?
Very much. Well, the name rocket stove derives from the idea that it creates something of a roar, and it does that because there are little miniature fire nados inside. Basically, it's a miniaturized fireplace and chimney. And as we know, in a fireplace, the chimney, the hot air rises up the chimney and draws more air in. Well, that happens on this, but it happens in a tuned fashion in the sense that it's like a carburetor for wood. The air is pulled in a continuous, almost billows-like effect. Not only does it burn hotter, but it burns more complete. Like I said, there's these little fire nados in there, and they're burning the wood in a complete way. It's really weird. There's basically a vortex, like a tornado, and within that, plasma physics apply, which no one really knows exactly what's going on. But the result is that it burns out all of the carbon monoxide.
Is that what makes it possible to use indoors as well as outdoors?
No, well, theoretically, you could use it indoors. I mean, you cannot smell the wood burning if you put your face over the top of it. Certainly you feel the heat. But in a yurt or a teepee, which are designed for having an open fire in, which is quite dangerous, in fact, in those situations, it's excellent. You can use the full grill assembly because it's only typically venting out carbon dioxide. Now, that's not recommended even though it works. We have an adapter, so if you're indoors, we just run the output gases, which again is only carbon dioxide, out of the window or the house or whatever the setup is. If it's in your existing fireplace, that's all taken care of.
Wow. So you, not only is it for cooking, and you can cook on the grill, you can cook in a pan, and you can cook in an oven.
That's right.
And you got heat.
Yes, and light too. We noticed when we tested it recently that it lit the room adequately, like 3 or 4 candles power maybe. And so yeah, and we were able then to boil water and conveniently cook on your fireplace. Everybody thinks, oh, we'll just put a can of beans in the fireplace. Well, try that. It doesn't. It works, but you have to be a real camper type person. Here's the other thing: you're still running through tons of wood. This is on the level of 10 times more efficient with the wood consumption versus the heat output.
Is there anything else you can burn in there? Is it just wood?
You can burn anything that burns. It would be, you would want to be careful with what comes out the top if you're using the grill on top. Otherwise, you're fine. The steel units will burn coal, and that's actual hard coal. It's not charcoal. That's what they run trains on and so forth. And it's a hard, shiny rock, and it burns. It's really amazing. So, yeah, it'll burn coal in the steel unit and last 3 or 4 hours without tending.
Yeah, I grew up in London with a coal fireplace back in the day, so yeah. I remember coal. So with this situation we've got going on in Texas, it seems to me like, wow, if everybody had one of these in their house, they'd be warm, they'd be able to cook, at least.
Yeah, and conveniently, and it's why it was designed, and I feel a little guilty in the 5 years since it's been available. And it took time. I have a full patent on it. That took about a year, a little long, actually 2 years for the patent itself. But it is a utility patent, so it's on the basic fundamental shapes occurring here and what they do with wood. Again, it's like a perfectly tuned carburetor for wood. And even that coal, you don't smell it coming out the top very much.
Wow. So what are your plans for getting it out there? Obviously, we would love to help you do that.
Well, yeah. Well, we talked about my being a sponsor of your show, and I'd be very honored to do that and offer your listeners a 10% off. They just want to put in your code, and I thought I'd use Cat Chat as your code. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Yep. Cat Chat will do it.
I guess there's a space in there. Cat space chat, just so you know.
We'll get it down. Anything else you'd like to say about the stove, your plans for the future, any additions coming on the stove? Or?
Well, I think the big thing is that we actually have been able to get ahead of production a bit here in the last while. Certainly getting it out on all the different social media and methods of marketing that come easily these days should be, that's what we're on to. But we now have the inventory to back it up. And so we're ready to ship just as soon as we get orders in. And, I got to say, it is truly a lifesaver. I'll do more work and send you images so you can show how it works with different applications, but it truly is a lifesaver.
So with the situation going on in Texas, we are being reminded of how vulnerable we all are to weather, to natural disasters. Things can happen, and when they happen fast. Also, there's the application of developing countries where people need heat, they need to be able to cook. How's that? What's happening with that?
Well, that's always been a big piece of what we're trying to do. And unfortunately, it's only been just me and what I could invest in my time, but I have written proposals, and I do have a relationship with international groups and NGOs that are looking to put stoves in other places where there's a disaster. Mine didn't really catch on because it's a little different. It's, I believe, more efficient, but it didn't really get studied, so that's something that was on hold. But yes, so for a disaster area, we looked at Nepal, and in fact, there's a unit there. Nepal had an earthquake about 4 years ago, and those folks are on the street with nothing to cook on. This is portable, it's affordable, and they can be manufactured on site in the locations where the problem is. They don't have to be shipped. Interestingly, it's off-the-shelf metal. The main tubes are they come in 20-foot long shots, and you just chop them up and put a 45, and boom, you got this L shape that, again, emulates every other fireplace type system, but it makes it small, portable, and able to cook on 3 levels.
So with the patent system, can people copy it?
They're welcome to. In fact, I'll send the plans anywhere. What they can't do is import them into the U.S., which obviously would be a huge market in time. They are expensive to make here. The welding comes in at $50 to $60 an hour, and they're pretty elaborate. But we're working on that. We have some ideas of manufacturing them overseas. And then we have a couple units in Mexico. So just as soon as I can find the right people to start working with it, I send them the plans, they get into business. Needless to say, I'd like to benefit from that, but there's other ways to do that. So yeah, it's, this was the idea that drove me, that it's like 1 million people a year die from inhalation from indoor smoke, and that's from cooking in the house in primitive, if you will, conditions. 1/3 of the people on Earth cook on wood every day. So it's a huge advantage. And then, where you have this intense urban smoke, a lot of it comes from home cooking fires. Nepal, I looked at the map view of that from overhead, and it was just a pall of smoke. That's from inefficient cooking fires. So it actually works with the pollution factor, and then you're using wood, a renewable resource, so efficiently, and not contributing any dangerous gases. The CO2, well, that's debatable as to how problematic that is, but it comes out of that wood anyways. We're just channeling it and focusing on making food and saving lives.
Well, CO2 is what plants thrive on, so
I've heard that.
I don't think that's a big worry in real science.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this, to me, is like, if you choose to be prepared, this would be the thing to get. The Gordon rocket stove would be a first for preppers.
Yeah, and I hate to be over promoting, but it's absolutely true. It is designed for exactly what we're experiencing now, and nothing else is. You will burn through the wood in your fireplace in short order. You'll run out of charcoal, and you'll run out of propane, and this is that solution. And that's why I worked on it so hard. And like I said, stared at the fireplace for 30 years until it finally clicked. You did ask a question we maybe didn't address. it is so small, like you said, and yet a fire lives in there. It's weird to look at. Well, that's because it's creating its own vacuum and pulling the air in. And you just have to see it to believe it. So there's a video on the website. Again, that's GordonRocketCompany.com. And my phone number is there, and my email. So send me any questions or let me know about your application. I've put one in a motorhome RV unit, and it works great. And that person now is fully self-sufficient. They never run out of fuel. That is pretty important.
Yeah, and could you have it in a tiny home?
Yeah, perfect for tiny home.
What about a yurt?
Yurt, better yet, because
Or teepee.
Teepee. Well, the last two, yurts and teepees, are designed for indoor fires. The shape of them. Well, still, it's an inefficient fire, and they've got smoke, but the smoke rises, goes out the hole. This doesn't even create that smoke. And so it's 1,000 times better than anything else. Yet, you could use it open in a yurt. You'd want, carbon monoxide monitors and this typical stuff we can do these days. But carbon monoxide is not this sneaky villain. It is if you're asleep and you're getting a small dose of it. But the smoke that comes out of a fire and burns your eyes is the carbon monoxide. Now, it doesn't burn your eyes from heat. It burns your eyes from volatile chemicals like gasoline fumes. Well, that stuff burns in this stove. And so that's why there's no smoke, and that's why there's this huge upgrade in efficiency.
When you say it burns away.
Away.
So, yeah.
You cannot smell the wood burning in this thing somehow.
So can we purchase these with Bitcoin?
That's an interesting question. Certainly it's something we've considered. Not quite just yet, but we'll see if we can make that real here first thing next. The interesting thing is that along those lines, I'd considered creating a coin based on the company behind the stove, or if not the stove itself. In other words, it would be a digital currency backed by what I consider precious metal, that is the stoves themselves. So it's a way to support the company, and the coin supports the company, and the company supports the coin. It would be actually a backed coin that actually has a huge growth potential. I mean, if you take the coins that don't have backing, they have a wild upside and a wild downside. The ones that are based on precious metals themselves, gold and silver, those only appreciate to the degree that gold and silver does. So this is kind of a third aspect, and I think there's a lot to be investigated there, and we'll let you know as we take it forward.
Hey, Rosie Cat here. I just wanted to add my little piece here, my little testimonial about the Gordon rocket stove, because I actually am so fortunate to live here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where David Gordon also lives. And I had a group of people over here at my house one evening, and it felt like a campfire practically in my living room. It was really cool. David demonstrated the rocket stove for us. I believe it was the steel version, right, David?
That's right, yeah.
The larger
one. And we
one.
cooked on it too, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. We had this amazing, fajita stir-fry meal. It was just absolutely delicious. And my room, got really toasty warm. We could have had a, what do they call those, a sleepover?
Oh, yeah, a slumber party.
We could have had a slumber party.
It felt like that. We all gathered around the fireplace. It was really nice.
It was really sweet. So besides the joy that it, that experience evoked, the rocket stove, I think, is really an incredible invention. And yes, every single home in not just America, but all around the world. I don't know how many homes that is, but it's a lot. So all of you who have any smarts to prepare for the future, which is now, prepare now, have your Gordon rocket stove in your house, in your supplies, along with your water and your food and everything else.
I love it. I can't wait to get mine.
It's fun to play with, too.
David, you have a website, right? What's your website?
Yeah, that's GordonRocketCompany.com. And remember to get 10% off and put in Cat Chat on the order page. But again, we're able to ship out very quickly, and even in this crisis, they ought to eventually get there at some point by UPS, whatever their schedules are going to be. So I'd advise if anybody is inclined, now's the time to do it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks for telling us about it, and we look forward to doing more with you, David.
Well, I look forward to stopping by again another time. Thank you so much.